Hello guys, welcome to this tutorial. Before we get started, I want to let you know that you can find all the code example and resources we'll be using today in the GitHub Repository linked in the video description below. This repository serves as a valuable companion to the tutorial, allowing you to follow along, experiment, and explore the code on your own time.
Hey everyone, I'm glad to guide you through the process of integrating DynamoDB from scratch into NextAuth.js. I really love this part of the tutorial because I like relying on the adapter from the NextAuth library. Taking a from scratch approach offers us a huge flexibility. In this video tutorial, I walk you through each step of connecting DynamoDB with NextAuth. We will cover everything from creating a new user, verifying user during sign-in, updating user attributes. So by the end of this tutorial, you will have a solid understanding of how to harness the power of DynamoDB within NextAuth.js for a more tailored and efficient authentication system. So let's dive in. Actually, choosing a from scratch approach for integrating DynamoDB with NextAuth has its advantages, primarily centered around customization and control. Here are some reasons why a from scratch approach might be considered better. So first of all is flexibility and customization. Building from scratch allows you to tailor the integration to fit your specific requirement. You have a complete control over the code and can adapt it into the unique needs of your project. Understanding the inner workings. Developing from scratch provides a deeper understanding of the inner workings of the integration. This knowledge is valuable for troubleshooting, optimization, and future modification. Scalability. When you build from scratch, you have the flexibility to design a solution that aligns with your scalability requirement. This is crucial for projects that anticipate growth and increase the usage over time. So embrace the from scratch approach. It's not just a development choice, it's an exploration. So let's start with our project. You can see here, I already opened our project, NextAuth tutorial, that you can find on GitHub. And you can see all the folders and files that we created with the previous chapters. Now we are going to integrate DynamoDB, so the project will grow in complexity. First of all, we have to create a file that communicates with the DynamoDB. So the first file that we need to create, and in this file we are going to provide some methods that we can use from the other files with the import statement. Let's create a new folder here, a new folder that we call database. On the help folder, we're going to create, let's close here, going to create the database folder. And here we go. In the database folder, we are going to create a new file that is called Dynamo. We call them JS because we want to use the import statement with the ES6, and we're going to use as a module, and it's going to be like that. This file is going to run on the server, of course, for security reasons. So first of all, we have to declare, we have to say to Next.js that is a use server file. We're going to use this file as a server action. Okay, is a function that you can, if you read the documentation from Next.js, is a function that runs on the server. To activate server actions, we have to go to nextconfig, and we have to activate here and declare experimental server actions true. So in this way, we can use the server actions. Actually, server actions are just simple server functions that we can run from the client. Okay, this is really helpful and easy to use. So first of all, we have to install the AWS package that we use to make the connection with our DynamoDB. Actually, the first one is npm. We already are in our project. We install locally in our project. We can run npm install add AWS SDK client DynamoDB. In this case, I already installed it before, but anyway, you have to run this. And also AWS SDK util DynamoDB. And the last one that we will need is the AWS CRT. Here we go. Now that we have all the package installed, we are going to import. Okay. With this tutorial, I will show you how to create a new user. We need 4 methods from DynamoDB. The first one is the instance DynamoDB client. And And the three method we are going to use is get item command, and we also update item command to update some user attributes from the library that we just installed, that is AWS client DynamoDB. So here we need to import the marshal that we will use to elaborate the data from DynamoDB and remove all the attributes that specify the type of the data, because we don't need actually. So a marshal from util, and here we go, so that's this one. So we also need two functions that we are going to create, that is called valid password and gen password. Valid password, we will see that we use that function to validate the password. Actually, you have to know that we cannot save the password in plain text on the database for security reason. So we are going to hash. We are going to hash this password with a salt, with a string that is used to hash and to transform in Next64, and we are going to store in the database the hashed value. So in the database we store not the password but the hashed value and the salt. Using these two values, when we get back, thanks to the salt, we are going to verify, okay, the hashed string with the new input that we get from the user to validate it. We will see in details later. Now we just, before import here, we have to create these two functions, and we're going back to this file after that. The function, we can create a new folder here that can call utils, for example. We call utils, and inside this folder we can use it also later to put other utility files. So the file that we need now is password utils.mjs. And here we go. We need, first of all, the crypto module. Usually is already installed in your Node.js, but you can check if you don't have it. You can install from npm from crypto. And here we go. So the first function that we need is gen password. So this function will generate the hash value from the salt. So it received the password from the customer. We will use this function when we create a new user in the Dynamo database and we get the password from the other file. In this point, we create a random salt that we are going to use to hash the password. So the salt is crypto.random bytes. 32 is enough. So we have our salt, and we want to generate the hash. We call this value gen hash, and the same is going to be crypto, and we use this algorithm to hash ebkdf to sync. With this algorithm we can hash it, and the first argument is the password, the second one is the salt. We're going to put iteration here, 64, and the hashing method we are going to use sga sha f12. This is a standard hashing mechanism. Here we go. And at this part will generate our hash. This function will return me an object that contains the salt that we need. And we don't call hash because it's a reserved word in DynamoDB, so we call hash string, and we give back this value. And here we go. This function we will use to create new user, and we will get the hash string and the salt to store in our DynamoDB, and we will use every time we verify a new user. This is the second function that we're going to use to validate the password, and it's called valid, and it's called function valid password. We call it like that. The first argument is the password, is the hash string, and is the salt. So this function receives the password, the hash string, the salt. He's going to hash this password. This is the password from the user that is in the sign-in procedure. Okay, with the hash string, it means that we get for the DynamoDB the hash string the salt. So we hash this password from the client with the salt, and we compare to the one that is in the DynamoDB. If the hashed password is the same, it's going to valid. Just a few words about hashing. Hash is a one-way function that takes input data, in this case a password, and produces a fixed size string of characters, which is typically a hash value. So the key property of a good cryptographic hash function is that it is irreversible. So you cannot go back to the original plain text password. And the salt, as I explained, is a random value that is generated uniquely for each password and is going to be stored in the database. So let's verify the hash. So it's going to be hash verify. We compare this hash with the one in the database from Dynamo. So we return hash string verify. Hash. Let me explain you again. This is the password from the user in the sign in page. He put this password. We hash this password, okay, with the salt that we got from the DynamoDB. Okay, if the hash string from this password, that is this one, is the same of the hash string from the database, it means that the password is correct. So we give back a true value. So let's go back to our DynamoCon file that is here under database. So we created the password utils, and now we are going to our file. So now we can import those functions. So first one is valid password, and the second one is the gen password. So is DynamoDB client is a new. We take this is a new DynamoDB client, and we put the parameters inside. Actually, here is the authentication part. Never store your AWS keys or any other secret keys in the code. In this case, I already include in my environment files. Actually, in Next.js, you can put directly in nextconfig, and you can get them with the process.env. In this case, let's get those secret keys. So the region, first of all, my table is in US West 2 region, and the credential is in this object. So the first one is access key id, and we get it from the process.env. I call it US secret access key, and here we go. We have our key here. User, the first function that is verify user, and the second function is create user. I want to teach you how to create a user first after we have a new user in the tab, because the Dynamo tab now is empty. We cannot validate any user. After we create one, we can validate and see also the other function. Create user, okay, and that is an asynchronous function. The create user get two parameters, that is a username, that is actually the key of the tab, and the password. So when we create a user, we need these two information from the client. We go. What we have to do, remember, with the password, first of all, we have to transfer the password in a hashed value. So new salt hash, the new salt hash is gen password, okay, and we get the password. So this function will give me back a hashed value of the plain text password and the relative salt, okay, to store in DynamoDB for the future validation. So let's go ahead. So we're going to use the put item command, and with this command we're going to create a new item in the Dynamo database. And this command need, first of all, the table name, that actually is a user we just created before, is user NextAuth. Okay, this is the first. The second is the item, so we This is all the information and data about the item that we are going to store. The first one is the partition key, that is the username, and we specify that is a string, and we get from here. And to be sure, we always have to be sure that this is a string and not other type like a number or something else. So to be sure to don't get any error, we put a toString. Okay, the other value is the hash string, okay, that we get from this result from the function. The hash string is going to be also a string, and in this case it's going to be new salt hash, okay, dot hash string. Remember, we are getting this value, okay, hash string and salt. This is okay. We also need to store the salt, and the salt is in the same object, but this is salt. And I want to also interact with some other attribute from the user. In this way we can also, sometimes you need to store more attribute for a specific user to interact on the user level, for example. I want to show you later how to update the level of the user. Okay, let's pretend our website has like a 3 level, like a basic account and premium and advanced one. When we create a new user, we give automatically the basic level, and we can call this attribute role, for example, the role of our user. So it's called role, and this basic as default. So every time we create a new user, it's going to be basic. Here we go. So now with these params, we are going to connect. So let's implement a try catch method. So if we get any error, we can be informed. So we catch the error. So let's console the error. Console.error. We can show this one. For example, we can write error creating, and we show the error. So in this part we're going to implement our connection process. Going to be a new put item command instance with our params. So we are going to send this instance with all these params here, okay? And after this we can make a condition, and we can also, we have to return true, because we're going to use this function and see what it returns. If it returns true, it means that everything is okay, and we return false. Okay, so our function now is complete, so we can take care of the client side. Now let's create a new page for sign up. Okay, so in app we're going to create a new route. It's called sign up page, and inside this page we're going to create a new file that is page.tsx, and yeah, this is server side render. That we need also a client side component, client side render component, so we call it here pagecomp.tsx. Okay, so let's create the component first. It's going to be a use client. First of all, we need to, in this case we need the use state. In this case we need the use state to interact with the front end, so we import the React and also the use state. This is from React, and here we go. So we want to import the function that we created just now, and this create user, it is from app, sorry, it is from database Dynamo.js. Here we go. We need also a use router to redirect the customer to a specific page if the sign up procedure is successful or not. And here we're going to declare some state. Actually, this page is going to be just a form, also is going to be empty. We initialize the router. Let's create the form first. Okay, so the form is going to be just a simple form, and I just copy paste the code because I don't want to make you wait and get bored. Just a normal form in React. I already give some classes here that I put in the global file, global CSS, just to give a little bit of styling. And here is the form. So we have the first one is the username, the password, and the value is here. The value is going to be the default value that is empty. As we put something on the input, it's going to change, and with this function that we are going to declare now, we are going to update the state, okay, and re-render every time I input something. Password here is the same. Actually, I make it easy. We don't have two-field validation password like a normal website, but it's just you can implement. It's nothing difficult. This is the format. This is the submit, and on submit, we are going to call the handle submit, and we set the username state as the event.target.value, event.target.value, and we also create the same function for the password, and we call it handle password change, and set password here, event target value. So here we go, it's the same. We define these two functions, and we need the last function that is for handling the submission of the form, that is const handle submit, and that is an async function also. So we prevent default, of course, if not we get some problem. Prevent default, and we declare the first variable that is a create user response. Okay, what we are doing is that when I submit the form, I want to submit the username and the password that is going to invoke this function, the create user, and that is going to store and to write on the DynamoDB table. Okay, after this, I want to know if the operation finished successfully or not. If the create the user response is not undefined, like here, we are going to push the customer with the router to we're going to push on the sign-in page. So I create my new profile, and the app redirect me to the sign-in page, so I can put my data again and get inside the protected route. This is the path for the sign-in page, for the default sign-in page of NextAuth. We go. But if something went wrong during the DynamoDB operation, I want to keep the customer on the same page, and maybe I just want to refresh this page. Okay, you can of course integrate any other logic. For example, you can show a error message or anything else. So actually our page is ready. I think we already integrate all to make a test to create a new user. Let's try. So here we go. Our page is here. So we are not signed in. Okay, this is our root page, our home page that I'm not signed in yet. I want to test my sign up page. So the route is going to be sign up page. Let's go here, and we see we have, okay, first of all we have error. So the default export is not a React component page, sign up page. Okay, we didn't create a page. So that's a little detail actually. Let's create a page. Default function, we call it page, and this really fast, and we return the component, the client comp. Here we go. The page now is okay. So we refresh, and here we go. We have our form here. So let's test our form. Let's create a new user that is Samuele. So we can just a random password. Here we go. Okay, so the item successfully added to DynamoDB. Let's see all the process step by step. So I send the form, and from the sign up page, I press the button here. I activate create user. That is this function in DynamoCon. I send this password to the generation password, so I transform the plain text password in a hashed value with the relative salt, and I write these values on the DynamoDB, and DB status code was 200. It returned true, and I got from the console, from the terminal, item successfully added to DynamoDB. This function actually returned true, and it means that from the page comp here I got through here, so create the user response is true, and if it's true I redirect the application redirect me to the sign in page here. Okay, before signing in we have to implement the other function for validation, and that we're going to see now. So I just leave this page here, sign in, I implement all the procedure to validate the user so we can also test this part. Before going to the next step, I want to check what is stored in my DynamoDB. So this is the table, user NextAuth tutorial, and this is the element we created. So the username is Samuele. We create this hash string. This is the default role that is basic, and the salt is that one. So now we are going to create the validation process inside the DynamoCon. We need a new function that we will use to first retrieve the data from the DynamoDB using the key, the partition key that is the username that the user is sending from the sign-in page. We check the password with the salt. We are going to hash the password with the salt, and we compare with the hashed value that we already have in our DynamoDB. So let's create this function. Okay, so in DynamoCon we are going to create a new function here that let's create down here. So the function is verify user. Okay, the parameter that we need from this function is the username and the password. So the params that we're going to use for the API call to DynamoDB are, first of all, the table name, that is the same here, and the key, in this case the username, because as we saw we create the partition key as a username, okay, that is a string, and in this case the string is going to be, the username is going to be a string, and we get this from the client side. Let's be sure that it's a string, if not we get error. It's a string. Okay, we get, this is a get item request from the DynamoDB, so we're going to integrate also in this case try and catch error. So actually it's the same, catch error. If it's error we can say error fetching item from DynamoDB, and we throw error, and this is the call get item command new. We create a new instance of get item command with params that we already declare. Okay, from the DynamoDB we are going to get all the user data. So from the key we will get all the attributes that we saw in the tab. So we are going to get the username, we are going to get the hash string, the salt, and the role. Okay, that actually is basic for the user that we create just now. So the user data is the object that contain all, and is from Dynamo client. Sorry, it's from DynamoDB client. We send this command, So we have to make a ternary operator first, and we just tell if the item, okay, if the item is not undefined, we unmarshal the user data item. But if it's null, we will not unmarshal, and we give directly null. Okay, so now we just want to check if it's valid. So now that we get all the user data here, okay, we get that this first step confirm if we get if the user exists in the Dynamo database. The second step invoke the verification of the password. So we need to invoke the valid password function, and the argument was going to be password user data string user data dot salt. Okay, so if you remember, in this function we are going to send the password from the user, we are going to send the hash string that we got from the DynamoDB, the real hash string to compare, and the original salt. Okay, and the valid password here we see in the utils, the real password is what is doing is getting the hash string, the salt, and the password, verify the new password from the submit from the client with the previous salt from the database, and we calculate a new hash, and if this new hash verify is the same of the previous hash, it means that the password is correct. So we return a true value. Okay, so in this case, go back to DynamoCon. So it's valid. If it's valid, it's true. Okay, we return. In this case, we return true. If it's true, we return the user data. If not, we return null. Okay, and here we go. The function is complete. Now we have to integrate the verify user directly in our authorize function. If you remember, we have to integrate this function inside our API auth NextAuth route, okay, in our options, because actually this is the function that NextAuth use, okay, to confirm or not the sign-in request. If you remember, with the previous chapter we put just like a always validate return. So now we are going to apply the real validation. So let's integrate in this function the validation logics, and we have to first of all import the verify user here. Import verify user, and this is from our folder that is Up database and DynamoCon. We get from the credentials sign-in data from the form, and we get the user here. If the validation process in verify user is correct, we get back all the user information. We send as parameters the and also the password. Okay, and here we go. So Next.js require a user data if the validation process is completed, but if not, we have to return null. We already integrate this part in our DynamoCon. If the password is not valid or if we don't get the user, we give back the null. So we are here and we give the user. Let's try. We can go back to our sign-in page. Now I want to test the user that I created before, that is Samuele, and the password that I used before. Let's see. If everything is correct, I will get inside my protected route. And here we go. We are signed in our protected route, and it works. We reached the last part of this tutorial, that is how to update some user data, some user attribute inside the DynamoDB. So what I want to do is to create a page where I can manually change some data from the user. Let's create a new route here that we can call create here new folder. We can call it update user page. Okay, so we are going to create a file here, and we call it the same way. We're going to create a page.tsx and another file that is page comp. So the page is the same as before. We just changed the name of the component that we're going to create now. Update user comp. Here we go, from page comp, and we give back this component. And the component that we are going to create actually is a form and is quite similar to our previous one. We use the same component, so actually we can like copy paste the previous one. So we can take the sign up component, we get everything from here, and we paste here, and we change a little bit to make this form like with a select field. Here is all the same. We get from DynamoCon. Actually it's update user that we are going to create later. We have use router. The comp is we call it update user comp. The first field of the form will be the same. Let's change the role of the user. From basic we want to change to advanced or premium. Let's see how to do it. So we can call it selected role from the menu, and set selected role. Set selected role. As I use state, we want to show on the menu the default basic. Use router will leave the same. Handle username change will leave the same. Handle role change in this case, because we are going to change the role. The role change is the same. We don't set the password, but we set the selected role. The handle submit will remain the same. Actually here we can change update user response just to be, so we leave like that. Here is not create user, but it's going to be update user. So we get this one, and the parameters that we are going to send to this function actually is the username and is the selected role. Here we go. The update process is completed successfully. We want to redirect the client to a specific path. In this case we want to redirect also directly to the sign-in. It's okay, or not a refresh. We leave the same as create a new user, and here we go. We go back to our form, so it's a form container, handle submit. Here is all the same. We leave the same username field. Here is not the password, but it's going to be the role. Class name from library is a role. We don't want an input, we want to select here because we want to choose the right the option. So form input, name role, type we remove. Password, we are going to put the selected role, the default value. On change, we are going to handle the role change, the function. Here we're going to put the options from select, and we need also another select here. Actually, we don't close the tag here. We close here, and we put some option inside. The first option is going to have the value basic. It's basic, and we want to add a few more options. It's going to be premium and advanced. And we put premium, and we put advanced, and here we go. And the button is going to be the same for submit, and we call it update role. Here we go. So the component is completed, and we are going to create the function that is update user directly in our DynamoCon. Let's create this last function to update user. We can create down here export const update user is async. It's going to be username, a role, so we get the username and the role, and return back the params. It's similar to put item command, and no, actually it's a little bit similar to get item with something more. Let's create this to make it faster. So table name is the same, the key is the same, is the username, but here we need to specify the attribute that I want to update. So in DynamoDB, the API request require the update expression. So in this expression, we're going to specify a string that tell to DynamoDB to set my role name, I think it was the role, I think it was the, we call it role, in DynamoDB. Let me check. Yeah, we call it the role, but actually I think we make a mistake because this is a reserved name. I'm afraid that we get error with this name. Let's try. Maybe I make a mistake. Let's try. So set role in role value, and the value is going to be expression attribute values. We have to define the role value here, that is going to be defined like that. So the role value is, actually we have to specify the type of the data, and is a role, and we want to be sure that is a string. Okay, so we set the role, we get the role from here, and we want to tell Dynamo to return values new. It's okay. This is an update. This is the params to update some attribute. Of course, here you can add more attribute and you can change more stuff, but this one we just change the role now. And here we go. So we integrate here the try and catch error here. Let me copy paste to make it faster. So I console error updating item from DynamoDB with the error one. Okay, we need to integrate the logic here. This is a little bit similar to this. Let's copy this to make it faster. Actually, it's not get item con, but is update item command. Okay, and is update item command here. We're going to paste here with the params. And yeah, here we are going to get just the response. So is update item command response. We send update item command. Okay, so we don't need this part. We just need a response that tell me DynamoDB updated our attribute role. We can just put something similar to the first one, that is that one. Let me integrate this one. So the response is true, and the metadata, so the HTTP status code is 200. We go back to our page, client page, that is that one. Let me close some stuff here. So the page is this one, update router, update user. So we have everything here. We import the update user. Let's test this page and see if we are able to update the user somewhere that we created before. Update user page that actually is not protected, so we can get also if we are not authenticated. Here we go, we have our form. We can put the user and the new role that we want to update. So let's put somewhere the new role can be premium. We update the role. Here we go, we have this error that I told you before, so we have to change the role name. We cannot use the word role as a key in Dynamo, if not we get this error. Attribute name is a reserved keyword. The reserved keyword is role. So let's make a little change here. We need to modify DynamoCon all the role we call, for example, role name. So it is going to be role name. It's going to be, we have other part that is a role name. Here, when we create a user, we are not going to create the attribute as role, but a role name. So we don't risk to make mistake again. Role name is here. Role name also here. Here we go. Here I think we set everything. Let's see also on the client, on the page, if there is something about role to change. Let's create again, because if I create a new user with the same username, actually it will override it. Okay, so let's try to override the user. In this way, it will also change the attribute and override with the role name here, so we can use something that will not create problem with the with this word. Let's go again to our create user. The page is a sign up page. Sign up page. Here we go. Let's try somewhere again. We sign up, correct. Direct me to the sign-in page. Let's check in DynamoDB what happened. This, we should transform this role in role name. Let's check. Let's refresh the page and let's see. So let's check if we modify the attribute in DynamoDB. This is our tab, and we explore the elements, and here we go. Oh, we changed to role name. So now if we update this attribute, we shouldn't have any problem with this name. So let's try. That is update user page. I put somewhere that my new role is premium. Let's update. I don't get any error. Let's check our DynamoDB if the role name changed from basic to premium. So this is our tab. Let's refresh here from basic. We're going to, that's all. That's good. Here we go. Role name premium. We reached the end of this chapter. Thanks for joining. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful, and stay tuned for the next chapter where we will explore the world of OAuth providers in NextAuth.
We have reached the end of this video tutorial, and I genuinely hope you have enjoyed its content. If it has been helpful to you, please show your support by liking the video and sharing it with your friends on social media. If you haven't already, I warmly invite you to subscribe to my channel to stay updated on upcoming lessons. Don't forget to check out my website, devergolabs.com, where you will find a plethora of interesting programming content. You can also send me collaboration requests and explore all the programming services we offer. Your participation and support are crucial in my growing and to grow this community and providing you with even more valuable resources. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with us, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video tutorial.